Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. This morning I read a passage in When Bad Things Happen to Good People by Harold S. Kushner that reminded me of what I am trying to learn how to do in recovery. Big part of recovery has been learning how to avoid just going with my instincts and doing whatever comes to mind and whatever I want to do, and coming up with a system of values that I can use to actually guide my behavior and determine for myself whether what feels like the right thing to do is actually the right thing to do. And here's how he puts it. He says, to use a term which no one before our generation could have understood, animals are programmed. Built-in instincts tell them when to eat, when to sleep, and so on. They follow their instincts and have very few difficult decisions to make. Human beings, however, are unique in the world of living creatures. The image of God in us permits us to say no to instinct on moral grounds. We can choose not to eat even though we're hungry. We can refrain from sex even when our instincts are aroused, not because we are afraid of being punished, but because we understand the terms good and bad in a way that no other animal can. The whole story of being human is the story of rising above our animal nature and learning to control our instincts. Now, whether you believe in God or not, this line where it says the image of God in us permits us to say no to instinct on moral grounds, you can also substitute the structure of our brains or the intellect in us. It doesn't matter. The point is that we have the capacity to look at a situation and determine based on our own belief system whether or not something that we're going to do is right or wrong, and then choose whether or not to do that thing. Or we can do what I often found myself doing in my addiction and completely ignore that capacity and just do whatever feels good. That's one of the things that I've had to learn how to avoid in recovery, is just doing whatever feels good. And that's when I spoke a little bit last week about pausing when agitated. We also have to pause in a lot of our other situations that we encounter throughout recovery. We have to pause when given a choice between being lazy and just not doing anything at all, even though we've got a list of chores to do, and actually just getting up and doing those chores. Or if we're feeling very pressured to do some huge to-do list that we have to pause and decide whether or not it's really a situation where we need to do those things, or do we really need to take some time off and just relax. All of those different choices that we face as we go through life, we've got to be able to take the time and just sit to decide whether or not we're doing things for good or really just doing things because it makes us feel good. And that's why, for me, working a recovery program where I took some time to identify what values I felt were important to me in life was that was a really important step for me to take. Because if I am ever at a crossroads where I'm having trouble deciding what's the next right step, what's the next right thing for me to do, I can go back to that list of values. I can go back and say, okay, well, what kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to be the kind of person who lies to people in order to get what I want? The answer to that is no, I don't. And so the very easy choice there is to choose the path that doesn't involve lying to people. And this happens with smaller things throughout the day. Situations where I have an opportunity to help someone, but it requires me to take time out of my day and time away from something I really want to do for selfish reasons. That happens a lot. And when that happens, I often go back to, well, what are the values that I thought were important? And one of the values I felt was really important was being helpful, contributing to society, and caring for people around me. And so when I think about that, I'm able to make the easy choice of, all right, well, my stuff can wait. I'm going to help this person out, even if it's just a simple thing as, picking them up from someplace, or helping my wife to do something around the house. These kinds of decisions that we used to make based off of what was most convenient for us, based off of what felt the best and what served our agenda the 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 most. We can now make those decisions based on a more intellectual, a more spiritual guidelines, and that's where I have found a huge difference between my behavior in recovery and my behavior in my active addiction. It's something that I think is really important, because if I continue in my sobriety to just act like I used to, then the only change I've made is removing the alcohol and removing the drugs. And that's not what I'm looking for. The alcohol and the drugs were a symptom of larger behavioral and personality issues that I really feel like working a program of recovery has helped me address. And now I need to be able to move forward every day with addressing those issues and working toward the ideal self that I was able to outline as part of the recovery program I worked. I can only do that if I'm honest about my motivations, and if I do take a little bit of time to make sure that my actions are actually in line with the values that I feel like are important in life. That's it for today. I'll be back here tomorrow with more. Have a good one.